All right, hello and welcome. So, you're tackling CIMA P1, and you probably already know that costing is, well, it's a big deal. It's the absolute bedrock for everything else. In this session, we are going to break it all down and conquer it together. By the end, you're going to feel totally ready for your exam. Let's jump right in. So, here's our mission today, plain and simple. We're going to master the fundamentals of costing. Why? So you can walk into that CIMA P1 exam, look at any question they throw at you, and know exactly how to solve it. We're going to make this simple, make it stick, and get you that pass. But first, you might be wondering, why all the fuss about costing? Well, think of it like the foundations of a house. Every other part of management accounting, budgeting, making big decisions, checking your performance, it all rests on this one crucial thing. If you don't understand your costs, you simply can't manage the business. It really is that important. Okay, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the big picture. Then we'll build up our toolkit with all the key terms you need to know. After that, we'll get into sorting and predicting costs, see how this all plays out in real businesses, and then we'll wrap it all up with a powerful summary to make sure it's locked in for your exam. Sound good? Let's do it. All right, let's kick things off with part 1. Why management accounting matters. Before we dive into all the numbers and formulas, we have to understand the bigger game we're playing. This is the context, the why behind it all. So management accounting information really has 4 main jobs, and a great way to remember them is to think about running a business like you're the captain of a ship. First, there's planning. That's your map, where you set your destination using budgets. Then you've got control. That's you at the steering wheel, making sure you stay on course by checking your results against the plan. Then there's decision-making. That's you choosing the best path when a storm appears. And finally, valuing inventory. Your treasure chest is just knowing what supplies you've got on board. Now, it's so important to see planning and control as 2 sides of the very same coin. Planning is all about looking forward, right? You're using that telescope to figure out where you're going. Control, on the other hand, is about looking back. You're checking the rearview mirror to see what actually happened versus what you planned to happen. And that gap, that difference, that's what we call a variance. And digging into those is what cost control is all about. It's this constant loop of planning, doing, and checking. Okay, time for part 2, your essential costing toolkit. Look, to be a pro at this, you've got to speak the language, and that means getting a few key terms under your belt. These are the absolute non-negotiables. First up, we have direct costs. And honestly, these are the super straightforward ones. A direct cost is any cost you can physically point to and trace to one single product or job. The wood that goes into making one specific chair. That's a perfect example. You can say, that piece of wood belongs to that chair. Easy. And on the flip side, you have indirect costs, which you'll often hear called overheads. Now, these are the costs that are absolutely necessary, but you just can't trace them to one single product. Think about the rent for the factory or your supervisor's salary. These costs benefit all the products you're making, which is why that big umbrella visual is so perfect. It just covers everything. Now, here's a term you absolutely have to know. When you add up all of your direct costs, that's your direct materials, direct labor, and direct expenses, you get a super important number called the prime cost. It's the core traceable cost of making something, and trust me, you are going to be calculating this over and over again. So where do all these costs actually get collected? Well, that's where a cost center comes in. Don't let the name scare you. A cost center is literally just a collecting place for costs. Think of it like a bucket. It could be a whole department, a single machine, or even a specific project. We just use these buckets to keep our costs organized. Okay, let's build on that in part 3. Now that we've got some of the language down, we need to talk about how we sort or classify these costs. And we don't just do this to be tidy. We classify costs in different ways because it helps us make different kinds of decisions. For your P1 exam, there are 3 main ways to classify costs that you've got to know. First, by function. Is it a production cost from the factory or something else, like admin? Second, by nature. What is it? Is it materials, labor, or some other expense? And third, and this one is a really big deal, by behavior. How does the cost react when we get busier or quieter? And that's the one we're going to dive deep into right now. Part 4, predicting cost behavior. Okay, I need you to really focus here. Understanding cost behavior is a massive topic in P1, and it's a huge favorite with the examiners. Seriously, if you can nail this section, you are so much closer to that pass mark. So let's break it down. So at the very core of cost behavior are 2 big opposing ideas, variable costs and fixed costs. Now listen closely, because if you get this one thing, you're halfway there. They have an inverse relationship. For variable cost, the cost per unit is always the same, but the total cost goes up and down with your activity. For a fixed cost, the total cost always stays the same, but the cost per unit changes. Get that burned into your brain. Let's look at it visually. Just look at this graph. It's the perfect picture of a variable cost. As your activity, say the number of things you're making, goes up along the bottom, the total cost goes up in a perfect straight line. More activity, more total cost. It's as simple as that. And then we have the fixed cost, which, you guessed it, is the complete opposite. The total cost is just a flat horizontal line. It doesn't matter how busy you get, the total stays the same. Think about your factory run. Your landlord is going to send you the same bill whether you make one item or a million items. But what about costs that are a bit of both, like your electricity bill, which has a fixed charge plus a charge for what you use? We call those semi-variable. And to split them apart, we use a key exam technique called the high-low method. You just find your highest and lowest activity levels, use them to figure out the variable cost per unit, then work backwards to find the fixed part and put it all together in a nice little equation. It's a must-know. And the last one in this group is stepped costs. The best way to think about these is like a staircase. The cost is fixed, but only for a certain range of activity. For example, maybe you need one supervisor for every 10 workers. As soon as you hire that 11th worker, bam, you need a second supervisor and your total salary cost steps up to a new, higher fixed level. Okay, you're doing great. Let's move into part 5, costing in the real world. Because let's be real, theory is one thing, but your exam is going to test if you can actually apply this stuff to different types of businesses. So let's break this down. For a manufacturer like Toyota, the cost object is pretty obvious. It's the car. Their biggest challenge is managing all that physical inventory. Now, switch gears to a service business, like a hair salon. The cost object is the haircut. But what's the challenge? It's intangible. You can't put a haircut in a warehouse. And then you have the digital world, with companies like Netflix. The cost object is the user, and their massive headache is dealing with enormous fixed costs for content and tech, while the cost of adding one more user is practically zero. And when it comes to services, there are 4 unique characteristics you absolutely have to remember. The easiest way? Just think of a ship. Services are simultaneous. A haircut is made and used at the same time. They're heterogeneous. No 2 haircuts are exactly alike. They're intangible. You can't touch one. And they're perishable. You can't make a bunch of haircuts on Monday and sell them on Friday. This is what makes costing them so tricky. Wow, okay, we have covered a ton of ground. Welcome to part 6, your exam-ready summary. This is where we boil everything down to the absolute must-know essentials that you're going to take with you into that exam. Look, if you forget everything else from today, please just remember this one thing. Why do we bother with any of this? The whole goal of costing is to give managers the information they need for planning, for control, and for making smart decisions. That's it. It's not just about crunching numbers, it's about helping people take action. And here it is, the one formula I need you to have locked in for the high-low method. The variable cost per unit is simply the change in your cost divided by the change in your activity. That's it. Write this down, put it on a flashcard, practice it, make it your best friend. So I'm going to leave you with a little challenge to really get you thinking like a management accountant. Which cost behavior, fixed, variable, or semi-variable, do you think is the toughest for a digital company like Netflix to manage, and why? Think about their business model, those huge content libraries, and that tiny cost per user. Applying the theory just like this is the real secret to passing your exam. You have totally got this.